Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Stratton, and I'm going to be presenting my signature assignment checkpoint here. I'll discuss the community disaster plan for my area, an extreme weather event, which is shown in the photo here. This was the Hennessey fire in 2020, and then discuss how the disaster cycle analysis has previously been applied to this particular fire and additional work that still needs to be done. I live in Solano County. This is the area where the Hennessy fire was. And so I've looked up the community disaster plan. And what I've decided to do, just to get a broader review of the area, because I'm particularly interested in that, is I've looked at the county, city, and then my local actual community. So the Solano County Emergency Operation Plan was found online. It's a very large document, has many appendices as well as annexes that discuss certain areas. And so reviewed that briefly. Solano County covers 7 cities that are incorporated within the county, and it's quite diverse. There are wetland areas, agricultural areas, um, incorporated cities, Travis Air Force Base is in the area, um, industry. So it's quite broad in its coverage. The base plan within the EOP includes the description of the operational area as well as infrastructure. It discusses operations, command and coordination, community communications and information management, resource management, administration, and finance and training. And these all follow along with the um, uh, management system that we've been studying as far as operations and emergency management. Within the county plan, there are separate annexes that discuss animal care. And one interesting thing about Solano County is it's very close to the veterinary school at UC Davis. There's a veterinary emergency response team that does originate from the vet school, which is coordinated with the HAL OES, and so they often go out and assist in many of the natural disasters and emergency responses that involve animals, a lot of livestock in the area as well, lots of horses, cattle, sheep, and goats, as well as people who have uh, pets within their home. So, in addition to the animal care annex, there's a damage assessment, a debris management, mass care and shelter, mass fatality, protective actions, public health and medical, public information, alerts and warnings. And Solano County does have their own alert system, recovery, as well as transportation coordination. One comment of about this community disaster plan is it's findable on the county website. You do have to search a little bit. This is not information that would be readily accessible to residents within the county. Instead, residents are highly recommended and suggested to get updates through Nixle, which is what the county uses for emergency alerts, and then management within the county and individual cities and locations then handle the detailed areas of the emergency operations. Hazard dependencies that are included in this EOP include reviews for droughts, earthquake, extreme weather, and that's defined as high wind, heavy rain, or extreme temperature, flood, food and agriculture, slope failure, terrorism, utility disruption, and power safety, power shutoffs, or PS. PS is very common in the area due to high winds and many historical wildfires being sparked from electrical lines. So the primary energy provider within the county is Pacific Gas and Electric, and they will issue power safety, power shutoffs whenever there is a high wind warning. That's most often coupled with offshore winds, which bring very low humidity to the area, as well as these extreme wind events that can propagate fires in a dramatic fashion. And then finally, wildfire as the hazard appendices. The city of Fairfield, which is where I live, also has an emergency operations plan. It was finished in 2022. It has a very basic plan that goes over many of the same components that the county plan does. There's a hazard analysis, which gives city demographics as well as infrastructure within the city. Then it goes into quite a bit of detail with the emergency response operations and national incident management system description, who activates the EOP, what authorities are involved at the federal level, state level, county, and then city level. And then there are very, very detailed checklists for each section within the NIMS. So for ops, planning, logistics, and finance, each of those sections plus all of the subsections have their own checklist. So if there is an emergency, whoever is assigned to coordinate these different areas actually has a pre-populated checklist of things to do. And that also includes the GIS group, which is an area that I'm particularly interested in. Emergency alerts and warnings are also included, and then roles of city management and how the city management architecture then integrates into the EOP. The city of Fairfield also has incident-specific and functional annexes with task checklists. The incidents that are listed here, the largest incidents include an active shooter, cybersecurity event, dam inundation, earthquake, flood, hazardous material problems, a long-term loss of power with a power safety power shutoff with a PSPS, and then wildfire. Uh, those are the incident-specific annexes. Then for the functional annexes, they include how to manage donations and volunteers, evacuations, as well as mass care and shelter. And importantly, with the shelter information, it does include how to handle residents that are evacuating with their domestic animals, cats, dogs, and I imagine those would be small mammals and reptiles as well. Historically, and I think this was really highlighted with Hurricane Katrina, in 2005, many residents will not evacuate if they can't take their pets with them. So being able to integrate animal care within an evacuation scenario is absolutely critical to encourage people to leave and then take their pets. But then that also includes an additional layer of planning because people have to be able to contain their pets. If you have a cat loose in the house, what are you going to do when you take that cat to a shelter? So part of emergency operations planning that I'm actually interested in is trying to uh, strengthen community planning. So people who do have pets, let's say a wildfire is approaching or is nearby, containing their cat into a small area like a bathroom. So if you do have to evacuate, you have your cat in a place where you can grab them. Cats are notorious for hiding in places and very difficult to get during many emergencies. And that's why if you look historically at many wildfires that have occurred, especially within California. The Camp Fire in Paradise is a good example, as well as some of the other fires that have occurred in my area. A lot of people will have to leave without their animals, and so you'll have many animals that are then affected by the fire. Some die, and then some need months and months of rehabilitation. So that is included within the Fairfield Community Disaster Plan as well. An additional level of the community disaster plan that I wanted to highlight, just because it's of personal interest, is the area where I live. It's a community called Rancho Solano. There are 1,200 homes within the area, and because this area exists at the Wildland Urban Interface, or WUI, and is rated in a high risk zone by the state fire marshal, there is a huge concern personally, and I think it should be for the entire community, about how to evacuate this area in the event of a wildfire. If you look at the picture on the right and the very far right side, kind of about two-thirds of the way down, you'll see some blackened areas. There was a fire in this area last July, and I think Dr. Hansen will remember. I posted some pictures of this in a discussion that we had in that class, I think for our one of the classes I was taking with her, because as the class was starting, there was a wildfire, and I was watching Cal Fire drop uh, retardant and all the planes flying overhead, and then watching the smoke plume and watching the winds as well to see if it was going to blow towards the community or away. Unfortunately for me, it blew away. But one of the big parts about this community that is of huge concern is that there's a four-lane divided road that enters the community and exits the community. Only one entrance and exit. And if you look, you can see kind of a border going around the community. So you have the residents here who would all have to evacuate at once. Um, and interestingly, this community does not have a disaster plan. I wrote to the head of the HOA, the director, earlier in the week, and received a response yesterday that's asking if I would be willing to help take on the task of an ad hoc committee to develop a plan. So we'll see if I have the reserve time to do that, but I think it's necessary for the area. And if this community could do some good efforts to help mitigate wildfire risk in the area, landscape, hardening their homes, I think that's something that's not only necessary, but could be beneficial. The extreme weather event that I've selected for the signature assessment is the Hennessey fire, which occurred in August of 2020. It was a lightning-ignited wildfire that started on August 17th in Napa County. And at the top picture, you can see just a very tiny little glow right in the middle of the screen. This was a camera set up by PG&E, now that's been taken over by UCSD for their alert system. They have cameras all set up throughout the state, and those are really helpful in identifying early wildfires. But this wildfire started around 6:45 in the morning. There was a lightning strike, and then you can see the camera pick up this fire and smoke right afterwards. This fire occurred following a really significant heat wave that had occurred in the week prior, where temperatures were above 100 degrees, which is quite uncommon, at least for Napa Valley. I'm over the hill from there, and it's not as uncommon, but still high temperatures. And then the dry lightning storm was a historical event in and of itself. It caused massive fires that during that period. But this fire started in Napa County, but spread into Lake County, Sonoma, Yolo, and Solano counties, and became part of what was eventually called the LNU complex fire. By the time the fire had finished burning, there had been an evacuation order for 48,000 people. The fire was the sixth largest wildfire in California history to date, burning 363,220 acres. There were 1,491 structures that were destroyed, 232 were damaged, and unfortunately, there were 6 fatalities with 5 injuries. And those occurred, I need to do a little more research on this, but I think during the overnight hours when this fire really took off after cresting the Atlas Ridge, which is the mountainside you can see to the right of where that fire originated. The lower photo is taken in Napa Valley, likely from Silverado Trail looking east, and you can see the um, pyrocumulo cloud here uh, that is growing just with immense fire intensity. Uh, and eventually that fire did spread closer to where I live. On this slide, you can see the picture on the far left, that same cloud. This is the fire-caused weather, and the smoke cloud that you can see straight ahead. This was my spouse driving home, heading towards the area of Napa. That was on August 18th. This fire started on the 17th. Looking at the photos on the right, on August 19th at 6:28 in the morning, I took this photo out looking from my child's bedroom out towards the ridge, and you can see the smoke was starting to come closer, although it wasn't quite as active by the afternoon. The lower photo that was taken at 1:18 in the afternoon, and the fire was getting very close by that time. We had already started trying to make plans to evacuate, actually in the middle of the night on the 18th. Uh, I have a child with medically fragile. He's paralyzed, and so getting him out of the house, along with my 89-year-old mother and a number of different animals, it takes quite an effort. So by 2:44 on the afternoon of August 19th, our community was ordered. There was a mandatory evacuation, and it does take my son, or take me a long time to get my son ready. And I believe we were the last family out of the community by the time I got his respiratory care done and him loaded in the van along with everything else. So it was uh, a challenge. The fire came within a quarter of a mile of my home. Fortunately, homes in the community did not burn. We got lucky, but a lot of people who were evacuating were stuck on Highway Interstate 80. Actually, my neighbors, my elderly neighbors, they were in the car, and this particular fire jumped the maybe a 8-lane highway and went to the other side of the road, and they were stuck in the fire as it was crossing the freeway. And there are a few things that are quite as terrifying as knowing that there's a fire that close, and if you're stuck in traffic, you're just at the whim of the wind and where the fire travels. This is a fire progression map that just shows the extent of the Hennessey fire with a fire progression map. The older uh, boundaries of the fire are in the cooler colors, so you can see in purple where the fire started. And then the dates go all the way up to the 30th of August when the fire was finally contained. But you can see how the fire spread all the way down towards the bottom of the map, um, right around where it says Solano County. There are a couple small greenish areas, and that's right next to where my house is. So this was the extent of the fire by the time it was finally contained. The Hennessey fire eventually became part of the LNU lightning complex fire, and here you can see from CAL FIRE the number of structures that were affected. Uh, Destroyed are in red, major damage is in orange, yellow shows minor damage, and then green are affected, but only up to 9%. And then the black areas where the homes were not damaged. There were a lot of homes, if you look on the larger area here, on the right side, there's almost a line of homes extending from north to south that are in red. That area is in along Paradise Valley Road in Vacaville, right over the ridge from where my home is. When I was a veterinarian at UC Davis, we had a lot of clients that had horses out in this area, and there are roads that there it's a beautiful area, but roads that are back in the hills among oak trees and a lot of vegetation. And there's only a road in, and it's the same road, and it's this two-lane road, and it's windy. And if you can think about trying to load up a horse in a trailer in the middle of the night while the fire's burning around you, horses don't do well in those kinds of conditions. And so if you have a horse that doesn't load well, even if you have a horse that does load well, not everybody has a working trailer. So another area that I think is that I'm interested in, and I know this is a bit of a tangent, is just making sure that communities that with people that do have livestock have pre-prepared plans for how they're going to leave in an emergency, how they can get their horses loaded, because it becomes not only a danger to them, but anyone who comes in to try and help rescue horses. This was seen down in the Paradise, I'm sorry, not the Paradise Fire, the Palisades fire as well, when people were just trying to evacuate horses. And some people ended up just walking their horses out because they didn't have a trailer and there was no way to get them to safety. In working to complete the assignment here and looking at the disaster cycle analysis, there are some areas that are well understood, at least by me at this point, or I think we're well understood. And that would be in the area of response. CAL FIRE has a lot of information about how this fire progressed, the response, you know, uh, where they tried to make an impact and where they were able to make an impact in trying to contain the fire. Preparedness is going to be a little bit harder to look at. The area where this fire occurred has historically been affected by wildfires. Looking at the map shown on the right, this is historical fires from 1950 on, and the area in the cross hatch and the square hatch is where the outline of the Hennessey fire is. But if you can notice that there are many, many fires that have occurred in this area. And so based on landform, slope, vegetation, much of the area where this fire burns is land that is not, there's no there are no structures on a lot of it. So you have a lot of fires in the wildland urban interface. The wildland urban interface is shown in orange. And so if you look at where a lot of the homes are, they are right against the fire borders. And so trying to figure out what was done to try and limit vegetation growth or have controlled burns in this area is something I'm going to have to look at for the preparedness area. One thing to mention again is that the lightning storm that ignited this fire was very, very rare. And as we discussed in this class with extreme weather, you don't have any control over that. And so understanding that uh, potential future events with lightning spark storms could occur, there's nothing you can do to control that. So you have to look at the other side of the pre-wildfire mitigation and what you do to try and limit the spread of the fire if it does occur. And that's challenging. It requires a lot of money, requires a lot of resources, but that's an area that California State is working actively to address. Recovery, I do need to look for information about rebuilding. There weren't a lot of businesses that were destroyed here, but there were a number of homes, as I mentioned, over 1,400. I know a few people who did lose their homes. I know some of them have left the area, watching over time to see if a lot of these home plots were up for sale, and you could just see a concrete slab where there was a home and a lot of burned area where there was no more vegetation. Whether or not those lots have actually been sold and if there's rebuilding, unsure. There are, to my knowledge, no requirements for building wildfire hardened structures. Certainly shake shingles are not allowed in the area, but this is an area as far as zoning that, to my knowledge, does not exist in requiring wildfire hardened structures, but something that from a policy standpoint maybe should be implemented in the future, but that will be included within the final assessment. And then finally, mitigation. This area, as I mentioned before, where I live is in a high wildfire risk and a very high wildfire risk, closer to Lake Berryessa, where many of these fires burn. The region is impacted by droughts. The region is also impacted by extreme weather events with precipitation. So when this area gets atmospheric river events or a lot of excessive rainfall, then you have a lot of vegetation growth. That vegetation growth then in what appears to be about a 3 or 4 year cycle dries out, the brush is thick, then the brush is more likely to burn. So this is going to be an ongoing and probably worsening problem with the advent of climate change. And so how the state, how the county, how Fairfield as a city, and then how Rancho Solano as a community manages this is something that I will hopefully try and address in my assessment. If there are questions, let me know. I look forward to hearing your comments.